Shalom, YouTube. May Yahweh bless us all. May Yahweh and the messenger of Yahweh, the Malak of Yahweh, the angel of the Lord, who is Jesus Christ, all over the Old Testament, who spoke to Abraham from heaven when he said, Abraham, don't sacrifice your son. Now that I know you've not withheld your son from me, I will bless you. How does an angel have authority to bless Abraham? Who is this angel who wrestled with Jacob and blessed him? Who Jacob on his deathbed spoke about the angel who redeemed him from sin in Genesis 48. Who is this angel who I believe it was in Hosea chapter 12? The angel of the Lord who wrestled with Jacob, who Jacob built an altar to in Bethel. Who is this angel of the Lord? This is Christ. So may Yahweh, may the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit bless us all. The Holy Spirit which lives inside of us, the Father which lives in heaven, and the Son who lives right next to him, sharpening his sword for that great day of Armageddon. So, we are going to be discussing the Amalekites. We're going to be continuing with yesterday's topic on Islam being the Antichrist Amalekite religion. So Esau was the twin brother of Jacob. Esau married Hittite women who are Indo-European Anatolians from Turkish Greek region. Now these Hittites, these were one of the races that God expelled from the Holy Land to give it to the Hebrews. But they have made war against the Hebrews ever since. So Genesis 26, 33, 35, 34. When Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, the daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and Basemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and they made life bitter for Isaac and Rebekah. So Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob and Esau's parents, were ashamed of Esau for marrying two Hittite women, because it was known that these Canaanites were wicked. It was known that they were not supposed to mix with the Canaanites. But this is exactly what Esau did after he sold his birthright to Jacob. The very next chapter, he decides to marry some Canaanite women. So it's unfortunate because, just because he sold his birthright didn't mean he should have abandoned his principles. He sold his birthright to Jacob. Sure, Jacob is now the firstborn, but he had no reason to marry these heathens. But this is the path that he chose, and this has created intergenerational conflict between the Hebrews and the Edomites. By the way, Herod, the King Herod of the Gospels, him and his family are not Jews. They might have been the king, but they were not Jews. They were actually Edomites. At the time, the place was called Idumea. So this is something to note, that King Herod, who was not a Jew, tried to kill Jesus before he was born, because he was an Edomite. Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew. He ate and drank and rose and went his way, and Esau despised his birthright. I already read that about so Jacob received the blessing from Isaac, and Esau wanted to kill him. And in the book of Jubilees, which is Apocrypha, but it seems legit, book of Jubilees definitely seems like it should be in the Bible. It's in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's in the Ethiopian Bible. It lines up perfectly with the Torah. I only see one thing that might be inconsistent, but I don't think it's that it's inconsistent. I think it's just that in the story of Genesis, it's not giving the chronology exactly accurate. Sometimes in Genesis, you see stories that, like the Edomite kings list, for example, in Genesis 36. That kings list is not necessarily at the time before Moses. Some of the kings in that list appear to be after the time of Moses. It's just that this book was written several hundred years after the events. So one of those things in Jubilees is that it says that Jacob was with his father Abraham at his death. But if you read it in Genesis, it doesn't seem like Jacob was born until after the death of Abraham. But it doesn't seem like it's inconsistent. It just seems like the chronology is not, it's not saying the exact order of events, that Abraham died, and then Jacob had a son, and then Isaac had Jacob. It seems like it doesn't seem inconsistent. All right, let's get to it. So Esau wants to kill Jacob, and at one point, after the death of his father Isaac, and I believe the death of his mother Rebekah, like on the deathbed, his parents said, I forget which one, I think it was the mother. She said, please don't kill Jacob. Please don't have war with Jacob. Just forgive him and be at peace with him. And he said, of course, he's my brother. Why would I have war with him? But Esau's sons are like, is there peace in nature? Can a lion make peace with a gazelle? Kill him. He stole your birthright. And so Esau rises up against Jacob and tries to exterminate him and his children. And Jacob and his children go to war against Esau, and Jacob ends up shooting an arrow through Esau and killing him. This is how Esau dies according to the book of Jubilees. And there has been war between the two races ever since. The Edomites, who are the people of Jordan. So the Jordanians are actually three groups from the Bible. It's the Moabites, it's the Ammonites, and then it's the Edomites, the land of Idumea. So the Moabites and the Ammonites, these are the sons, the incest children of Lot, the nephew of Abraham. And the Edomites are the twin brothers of Jacob, who married into the Canaanites. So Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing with which his father had blessed him. And Esau said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are approaching, then I will kill my brother Jacob." But the words of her elder son Esau were told to Rebekah, so she sent and called her younger son Jacob and said to him, "Your brother Esau's coming, is consoling himself by planning to kill you." And so they sent away Jacob to go live with his uncle, to work for him, where he married his two cousins. And this is how the four wives of Jacob. This is where the 12 sons come from. So Esau marries Ishmael's daughter. Now Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him his way to Padan Aram to take a wife from there, and that as he blessed him, he charged him, "You shall not marry one of the Canaanite women." Well, Esau married two of them. So when Esau saw that the Canaanite women did not please his father Isaac, Esau went to Ishmael and took Mahalath, daughter of Abraham's son Ishmael, and sister of Nebaioth, to be his wife in addition to the wives he had. I wonder if this is where the Muslims come from. I wonder if this is where Muhammad's lineage comes from these Ishmaelites that married in with Esau, who is Edom, who hated the Jews before they were even called Jews. So Timnah was the concubine of Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bore Amalek to Eliphaz. These were the sons of Adah, Esau's wife. So I believe that this woman, this Timnah, I believe she was also a Hittite. And I'm not sure exactly where I read this story, but apparently she wanted to join herself to the Jews. She wanted to join herself to Jacob's family. She says, "Please let me convert. I know your God is the true God. Give me the chance to serve him." But they refused her because she was a Canaanite, which is unfortunate because if she was authentic about her desire to serve Yahweh, they should have taken her. But she didn't get accepted, so she was a concubine, and this is where the origin of Amalek comes from. And the Amalekites have always been extremely hostile to the Hebrews. In fact, the Amalekites are explicitly cursed by God, that there will be war between them and the Jews forever and ever until the end of times, when God will completely blot them out from existence. So there are several groups married in with Esau that are hostile to the Jews. And one of these is the Hittites, and one of these is the Ishmaelites. So it goes into the list of the genealogies of Esau, the king's list, because Esau was very powerful, very great kingdom, until the kingdom of Israel basically became more powerful. So these are the kings who reigned in the land of Edom. This is Genesis chapter 36. The kings who reigned in the land of Edom, also known as Idumea and Jordan, before any king reigned over the Israelites. Bela, the son of Beor, reigned in Edom. I believe this is the same as Balaam. Balaam, son of Beor, the prophet, who basically he knew how to worship Yahweh. He gave burnt sacrifices to Yahweh, and he received prophetic visions from him. And he basically was paid to put a curse on the Jews, but it did not work. So I believe this Bela, son of Beor, is the same as the Balaam, son of Beor. Bela died, and Jobab, son of Zerah of Bozrah, succeeded him as king. It appears that Jobab is the same as Job in the book of Job after the book of Psalm. I think it's before Psalms. But the book of Job talks about this man who is not a Jew, but he gives burnt sacrifices to Yahweh, and he's one of his prophets. And he suffers greatly at the hands of the devil. So Bela, son of Beor, and Jobab appear to be from the Edomite lineage. So Malachi 1:2. "I have loved you, says Yahweh. But you say, how have you loved us? Is not Esau Jacob's brother, says the Lord? Yet I have loved Jacob, and I have hated Esau, and made his hill country a desolation, and his heritage a desert for jackals." Romans 9:13. "As it is written, I have loved Jacob, but I have hated Esau." Well, this is why he was hated, because he married the Canaanites, and he was hateful to his brother. He wanted to exterminate the Jewish race. You can't fight Israel. You can't fight Judaism. You can't fight Christianity. You can't fight the Bible. When you fight against these things, you fight against God Almighty. And God Almighty is undefeated. It doesn't matter how much it looks God, like God died on the cross for our sins. The only way we could be saved was for Jesus to humble himself, become mortal, and to die for our sins. That's how great God's power is. God's power is so great that he never loses. If he says something's going to happen, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel, God with us. Well, how can a virgin get pregnant? He's going to make it happen anyways. So Genesis 14:7. Now this is before the Amalekites existed. This is during a war between the kings of Sodom. And Abraham gets involved in this war. And then in this chapter, he meets Melchizedek of Shalom. Melchizedek, righteous king of peace, who many people, and myself included, believe is Jesus in the Old Testament. Because Abraham is just now learning about God. He's just now finding Yahweh after living among pagans. And then this high priest of Yahweh meets him and blesses him. And it appears that this is Jesus. So before the Amalekites existed, it's talking about them. How is this possible? Well, it seems like the Amalekites it's another word that could be used for Hittites, because remember, Esau married into the Hittites. He married into their clan. So the country of the Amalekites, this is the land of the Hittites. So then they turned back and came to En Mishpat, that is Kadesh, and subdued all the country of the Amalekites and also the Amorites who lived in Hazazon Tamar. So what we're reading about is a war among the Hittites and the Amorites and the kings of Sodom from 2000 before Christ. And you're never going to find this kind of stuff in the Quran. You're never going to find these kinds of stories in any other book except for the Bible. So Timnah was a concubine of Eliphaz, Esau's son. She bore Amalek to Eliphaz. Goes on to talk about the genealogies. Amalek attacks Israel and is defeated. So this is right after the Exodus. God opened up the ocean. The Jews crossed by foot. And Amalek, who is from Esau's lineage mixed with the Hittites, wanted to make war against God's people. God gave them a very important task, and Amalek said, let's see if we can kill them. Yes, they have God on their side, but let's go to war with them anyways. We're a great, mighty empire, and these are just a few desert savages. Let's kill them. So Amalek came and fought with Israel at Rephidim. Moses said to Joshua, choose some men for us and go out, fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. So Joshua did as Moses told him and fought with Amalek, while Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. Then the Lord said to Moses, write this as a remembrance in a book and recite it in the hearing of Joshua. I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven. He said, a hand upon the banner of the Lord. The Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. So there has been perpetual war between the Jews and these Amalekites, who are Hittite Edomites. And these Hittite Edomites were a very powerful empire from Anatolia. They spread out into the land of Canaan. They went to war against the Hebrews. And it could very well be that they intermarried with the Ishmaelites. We see that Esau married into Ishmaelites. We're seeing all these clans of the Middle East having ancient hatred for the Hebrews, from the Palestinians, which are the Philistines, the Philistine peoples of basically Gaza. We see this with the Moabites, the Ammonites of Jordan, as well as the Edomites, who is the lineage of Esau, and the Amalekites, who are also the lineage of Esau mixed with the Hittites. All these groups around Israel have constantly been at war with them in modern days and in ancient days, and it's all ancestral hatred for the God of Israel, for his Torah, and for his Gospels. So, it talks about the Amalekites live in the land of the Negeb, which I believe is the Negev desert in Israel. The Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live by the sea and along the Jordan. For the Amalekites and the Canaanites will confront you there, and you shall fall by the sword, because you have turned back from following Yahweh, and Yahweh will not be with you. All right, so this is Numbers 24:20. Now this is the prophecy of Balaam. Balaam, son of Beor, who I believe is the same as the Bela, son of Beor, of the Edomite lineage. Now, Balak, king of Moab, hired him to put a curse on the Hebrews because he was afraid of them. And Bela was going to do it until the angel of the Lord came and withstood him, and he fell on his face and worshipped. And he said, okay, I will do what you say. I will not curse them. I will only say what you tell me to say. But this was not true. Balaam ended up, after 3 times of trying to curse them, but constantly giving them blessings instead, Balaam said, listen, if you want to destroy these people, the only way, King Balak of Jordan, Moab, the only way you can conquer these people is to get them to disobey the commandments of their God. When they transgress the law of Moses, then you can do whatever you want with them. And that's what happened. In Numbers 25, the Moabite women seduced the Hebrews to fornicate and eat food sacrificed to idols, the exact same way that the Muslims sacrifice their korban to Allah, and they do recitations to Allah, a pagan moon god, and then they consume it. This is the exact same thing the Moabites did to the Hebrews to put a curse on them. He looked on Amalek and uttered his oracle, saying, first among the nations was Amalek, but its end is to perish forever. So this Amalekite Hittite empire of Esau mixed with the Aryan Hittites of Anatolia, they will perish forever. Their empire will not even be remembered. First among nations was Amalek, but its end is to perish forever. Deuteronomy 25:17, one of the commandments of the Torah. Remember what Amalek did to you on your journey out of Egypt. Therefore, when Yahweh your God has given you rest from all your enemies on every hand, in the land that Yahweh your God is giving you as an inheritance to possess, you shall blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. Do not forget. So Agag is one of the kings of Amalek. This is going to be very important with the book of Esther. I believe Agag is a lineage of kings because the book of Numbers and the book of Samuel are separated by at least a few hundred years. So Numbers 24:7. Water shall flow from his buckets, and his seed shall have abundant water. His king shall be higher than Agag, and his kingdom shall be exalted. So I believe Agag is a title for the Amalekite kings, or it is an Amalekite king, and then this Agag in 1 Samuel is a different one from his lineage. So Samuel told Saul, you have to completely destroy everything from the Amalekites, men, women, children, cattle, everything. This sounds psychotic, it sounds crazy, until you realize that there's a lot of Talmudic myths, Talmudic legends, midrashes, about the Amalekites. It says that they are skinwalkers. The Navajo Indians have myths about skinwalkers, which are humans who can shapeshift into the form of animals. There's also myths in Greece. There's a mountain called Mount Lycaea, which is a place where they would do human sacrifices to Zeus and cannibalism rituals where apparently people would shapeshift into werewolves. I believe werewolves are real. I believe this is some sort of satanic witchcraft, this skinwalker stuff. There was a book written by an eyewitness to the witch trials, the Basque witch hunts. Actually, the trials, it wasn't even the hunts. He was there to interrogate them. His name was Pierre de Lancre, 1612, On the Inconstancy of Witches, a several hundred-page book about the witches of the Basque region of France. And everything he says in that book lines up with the Bible, and it lines up with what we know about Satanism. And he wrote other books, and one of those books was about werewolves. It was about lycanthropy, but that one was not translated into English. That one's only in French. So we see that this myth about humans shapeshifting into animals through witchcraft, there's some credibility to it. The Navajo Indians are very cagey about this. If you ask a Navajo Indian about the skinwalkers, they're going to be offended about it. And they say, oh, these are the bad ones and we're the good ones, but we don't want to talk about that. You're offending us. Well, if you're offended by it, it means you're hiding something. So it seems, and this happened with J.K. Rowling, by the way. She put on a Wikipedia page or something about these skinwalkers of the Navajo Indians, and they were very offended that she was shining light on basically a satanic cult part of the Navajos, that they are able to shapeshift into animals, and they're hiding this. So this might very well be why the Amalekites, there was this order, completely blot them out, men, women, children, livestock, everything. They're such a wicked people. In the wisdom of King Solomon, it says that the people of the land of Canaan were consuming human flesh, sacrificing their children to Moloch. Every single transgression of the law of Moses, that's what these Amalekites were doing. That's what these Canaanites were doing. And that's why God told them, exterminate all of them except for the virgins, aside from the Amalekites. These were the only ones where God said, completely wipe them out. So, King Saul refused to do this, and this is the final straw that broke the camel's back with his relationship with God. The Holy Spirit left King Saul because he disobeyed the commandments. So he took King Agag of the Amalekites alive, but utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. Saul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep and the cattle and of the fatted calves and the lambs and all that was valuable, and would not utterly destroy them, and all that was despised and worthless they utterly destroyed. Saul said to Samuel, I have obeyed the voice of Yahweh. I have gone on the mission on which Yahweh sent me. I have brought Agag, the king of Amalek, and I have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. So basically, he said, we're going to take these and we're going to sacrifice them to God, the camels, the cows, the sheep. But, I took them as a hostage to show how powerful I am. And Samuel says, you disobeyed the word of God. Disobedience to the voice of God is like witchcraft. So Samuel ends up killing King Agag. Samuel said, bring Agag, king of the Amalekites, here to me. And Agag came to him haltingly. And Agag said, surely death is bitter. Samuel said, as your sword has made women childless, so your mother shall be childless among women. And Samuel hewed Agag in pieces before Yahweh in Gilgal. So, Agag, remember that. Agag, king of Amalek. Because now we're getting into the book of Esther during the Persian Empire. So this is around 500 before Christ, I believe, the book of Esther. This is where the origin of the holiday Purim comes from, which it's not a Hebrew high holy day. Like, it's not a sin if you don't follow Purim. And there's some weird stuff about Purim, like the Hamantash, which is like Haman's ears. There's a weird satanic cult pretending to be Judaism, and they literally make pastries in little triangle shapes of Haman's ears. And yeah, these are not actual Jews. This is paganism hiding behind Judaism. So Haman undertakes to destroy the Jews. Esther 3:1. After these things, King Ahasuerus, who is the same as King Xerxes, let's see how long I've been talking. Okay, not too long. King Ahasuerus promoted Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite. So he's from the lineage of Agag. And King Ahasuerus, who is the same as Xerxes, Ahasuerus is the transliteration of the Babylonian for Xerxes into Hebrew into English. So King Xerxes promoted Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him, and set his seat above all the officials who were with him. So King Xerxes, so the book of Esther is historically accurate. You know how we know? Because there's a court official in King Xerxes's royal court, and his name was Marduku or Mordecai. So Mordecai in the book of Esther is in the historical records for King Xerxes. Impressive. How are these things not better known? Because the Greeks have been systematically destroying historical evidence of the Bible. Just as they destroyed the temple, they desecrated the temple in the book of Maccabees, they slaughtered pigs there to desecrate it, and they forced 7 brothers and their mother to eat pork or die. And every one of them said, we will die rather than transgress the law of our fathers, which we received from God. So this is what Greece is about. Greece is a satanic pagan cult. They destroyed the historical archives of Babylon. They destroyed the historical archives of Persia. They created the globe Earth model, even though they knew it was not a globe. They knew the Bible was true. Alexander the Great was very well versed in the Bible. The Greeks are, I believe, the Amalekites. At least the Macedonians are the Amalekites, but we'll get to that soon. So Xerxes promoted Haman, the Agagite, the lineage of Agag, the Amalekite, and advanced him and set his seat above all the officials who were with him. So the king took his signet ring from his hand and gave it to Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews. Of course, the Amalekites are the enemy of the Jews. Esther spoke again to the king. She fell at his feet, weeping and pleading with him to avert the evil design of Haman the Agagite and the plot he had devised against the Jews. What was his plan? He wanted to exterminate every single Jew that lived in the Persian Empire by lying to King Xerxes. He said that they were insubordinate, they were insurrectionists, they were wicked, and that their laws were transgressing the laws of the kingdom and they had to be put to death. And the king was going to go for it. He gave him permission. Esther was able to prevent this. Esther and Mordecai worked together to save the Jews of Persia. So she fell at his feet, pleading with him to avert the evil design of Haman the Agagite and the plot he had devised against the Jews. She said, "If it pleases the king and I have won his favor, and if this thing seems right before the king and I have his approval, let an order be written to revoke the letters devised by Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, which he wrote giving orders to destroy the Jews who are in all the provinces of the king. For Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews, had plotted against the Jews to destroy them and to cast pur, that is, the lot, to crush and to destroy them." So this is from the Apocryphal, the Greek Esther. This basically talks about a few more it just adds more context to the story. Remember, just because it's not in the Bible doesn't necessarily mean that it didn't happen. If the Bible, the King James that we have, the modern King James, it's 66 books. The story from Moses until Revelation is, let's call it 73. Let's go with the original Catholic and King James Bible before the revision. So 73 books in the Bible, covering a period of time of about 1,600 years. From Moses until John and Patmos, 1,600 years, 73 books. That's not that many books. David didn't have more research. What was lost when the Temple of Jerusalem was destroyed? What was lost with the Babylonian captivity, with the Roman all these things have deleted many parts of the Bible. What happened to the book of Jasher? Where are the Acts of King Solomon? Where's the book of Nathaniel the prophet? Where's the book of Edo the prophet? There are many books mentioned in the Bible that are not in the Bible. And this is the cover-up. This is what the Amalekites have been doing. So Greek Esther 8:12. On a single day, the 13th of the 12th month, which is Adar, throughout all the kingdom of Xerxes, the following is a copy of the letter. The great king Artaxerxes to the governors of the provinces from India to Ethiopia, 127 provinces, and to those who are loyal to our government, greetings. Many people, the more they are honored with the most generous kindness of their benefactors, the more proud do they become, and not only seek to injure our subjects, but in their inability to stand prosperity, they even undertake to scheme against their own benefactors. They not only take away thankfulness from others, but carried away by the boasts of those who know nothing of goodness. They even assume that they will escape the evil-hating justice of God, who always sees everything, and often many of those who are set in the places of authority have been made in part responsible for the shedding of innocent blood and have been involved in irremediable calamities by the persuasion of friends who have been entrusted with the administration of public affairs. When these persons, by the false trickery of their evil natures, beguile the sincere goodwill of their sovereigns. What has been wickedly accomplished through the pestilent behavior of those who exercise authority unworthily can be seen not so much from the more ancient records that we hand on as from investigation of matters close at hand. In the sovereigns, close at hand. In the future, we will take care to render our kingdom quiet and peaceable for all, by changing our methods and always judging what comes before our eyes with more equitable consideration. For Haman, the son of Hammedatha, a Macedonian, really an alien to the Persian blood and quite devoid of our kindliness. Now, who are the Macedonians? Because the Greeks did not consider Macedonians to be actually Greeks. Macedonians were always considered outsiders. It appears that the Macedonians are the same as the Amalekites. Really an alien to the Persian blood and quite devoid of our kindliness, having become our guest, enjoyed so fully the goodwill that we have for every nation that he was called our father and was continually bowed down to by all as the person second to the royal throne. But unable to restrain his arrogance, he undertook to deprive us of our kingdom and our life, and with intricate craft and deceit, asked for the destruction of Mordecai, also known as Marduku, in the official records of Xerxes. Mordecai, our savior and perpetual benefactor, and of Esther, the blameless partner of our kingdom, together with their whole nation. He thought that by these methods he would catch us undefended and would transfer the kingdom of the Persians to the Macedonians. But we find that the Jews who were consigned to annihilation by this thrice accursed man are not evildoers, but are governed by most righteous laws, and are children of the living God, Most High, Most Mighty, who has directed the kingdom both for us and for our ancestors to the most excellent order. You will therefore do well not to put in execution letters sent by Haman, son of Hammedatha, since he... Hold on. You do no okay. Not to put in execution letters sent by Haman son of Hammedatha, since he, the one who did these things, has been executed at the gates of Susa with all his household. For God, who rules over all things, has speedily inflicted on him the punishment that he deserved. Therefore, post a copy of this letter publicly in every place, and permit the Jews to live according to their own customs, and lend them support, so that on the 13th day of the 12th month, Adar, on that very day they may defend themselves against those who attack them at the time of affliction. For God, who rules over all things, has made this day to be a joy for his chosen people instead of a day of destruction for them. Therefore you shall observe this with all good cheer as a notable day among your commemorative festivals, so that both now and hereafter it may represent deliverance for us and for those loyal to the Persians, but a reminder of destruction for those who plot against us. Every city and country without exception that does not act accordingly shall be destroyed in wrath with spear and fire. It shall be made not only impassable for humans, but also most hateful to wild animals and birds for all time. So he says Haman was a Macedonian. This is very, very important. Greek Esther 9:24. Now Haman son of Hammedatha the Macedonian fought against them, how he made a decree and cast lots to destroy them. So the Macedonians and the Agagites are the same. Agag is Amalek. The Macedonians were one of the most horrible groups to ever conquer Israel. The Babylonians were not nearly as hostile to the Hebrews as the Macedonians were. Nebuchadnezzar was not killing Jews for refusing to eat pork. He did threaten to kill a few Jews for refusing to bow down to his statue, but once he saw that God was on their side, he immediately realized he was making a mistake. So 1 Maccabees 1:1, Alexander the Great. Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian. Macedonians related to Agag, the Amalekites. So remember, Anatolians, this is where the Hittites come from. The Hittites, I haven't gotten to that part yet. But the Hittites are Anatolian Aryans, and this is where the Amalekites come from. This is where the Edomites come from. Esau married into these Indo-European Aryan Hittites of Anatolia, where we also get the Macedonians. So Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came from the land of Kittim, had defeated King Darius of the Persians and the Medes. He succeeded him as king. He had previously become king of Greece, and this was prophesied in the book of Daniel. In the book of Daniel, it says that Nebuchadnezzar is the statue of gold, and after him comes an inferior kingdom. He's the head of gold. Afterwards comes an inferior kingdom of silver. Afterwards, one of bronze. After one of iron, and then iron mixed with clay. So the gold kingdom was Babylon. The silver kingdom was Medo-Persia, and the bronze kingdom is Greece, who defeated the Persians and Medes and succeeded him as king. He had previously become king of Greece. So he had previously become king of Greece. It doesn't say he was already the king of Greece. The Macedonians conquered. Macedonians who come from the land of Kittim. Let's see what Kittim actually is. Let me Google that real quick. But yes, Macedonians are not truly Greeks. Macedonians are Hittites, Amalekites from the looks of it. So the land of Kittim. 1 Maccabees 6:2. This temple was very rich, containing golden shields and breastplates and weapons, left there by Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian king who first reigned over the Greeks. Kittim. They had crushed in battle and conquered Philip, the king Perseus of the Macedonians, and the others who rose up against them. So Kittim was a settlement in present-day Larnaca on the east coast of Cyprus, known in ancient days as Kidion or Sidium. And it was known as Kittim in the Bible. So this is from the lineage of Javan. I'm trying to look at this map. This map's not... You can't see it. I'm looking at this map. It's not very clear. But yes, Kittim... Okay, I see it. It's Cyprus. Okay. Okay, so Kittim is Cyprus, and then Greece. Yeah, Kittim's not even close to mainland Greece. So he conquered Greece from these little islands off the coast of Israel. Looking at the coast of Israel, it's northeast of Egypt, it's northwest of Israel, and it's south of I believe Turkey. I believe that's what's north of Israel, right? Turkey. It's south of the Black Sea. It's the Black Sea, and then there's a peninsula, and then there's Kittim, which is Cyprus. So he's not truly Greek. He's Macedonian. He is very likely this island chain of this island of Kittim. It's very likely these are the Amalekites who were basically conquered by Israel. They fled from the land, and this is where they settled to make war in the future. So Alexander the Great, a Macedonian who reigned over the land of Greece, who is not Greek, who is similar in race to Amalek, Agag, the Agagites, Haman of the book of Esther. So, we already read about Esau's Hittite wives, how it wearied his parents. Esau took his wives from the Canaanites, Adah, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and Oholibamah, daughter of Anah, son of Zibeon the Hivite. God promises the land of the Hittites, the Canaanites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites to Israel, that they're going to be cleansed from the land by the Spirit of God, and that they will not be able to stand. Amalekites live in the land of Negeb, the Hittites. All right, Esdras, First Esdras 8:66, which is Apocrypha. It's similar to the book of Ezra. It's the same prophet Ezra, but Esdras 1 and 2 goes into much more detail. The nation of Israel and the rulers and the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the foreign nations of the land and their pollutions: the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Moabites, the Egyptians, and the Edomites. So all these groups have been enemies of Israel for a very long time, and they still are to this day. The Hittites were an Anatolian Indo-European people, meaning Aryans, who formed one of the first major civilizations of Bronze Age West Asia, possibly originating from beyond the Black Sea. They settled in modern-day Turkey in the early 2nd millennium BC. The Hittites formed a series of polities in north-central Anatolia, including the kingdom of Kusara, the Kanesh or Nisha kingdom, and an empire centered on Hattusa. I wonder if the Hittite. Let me see if the Hittites were in Kittim. Because if they were, well, there's your smoking gun. But yes, these Amalekites have been at war with Israel for a very long time. And this is where Islam comes from. Islam is a pagan Amalekite religion. Hittites, Cyprus. Let's see. Yep, the Hittite Empire had laid claim to the kingdom of Alashia, located in modern-day Cyprus since the late 14th century before Christ. Coincidentally, this is when Israel would have kicked them out of the Holy Land. The battles of Alashia. So there you go. The Hittite Empire, the Amalekites, they conquered Cyprus. They conquered the land of Kittim after Israel wiped them out of the Holy Land. And then from there, they got revenge through Macedonia, through Alexander the Great. The Anatolians were Indo-European speaking people of the Anatolian Peninsula in present-day Turkey, identified by their use of the Anatolian languages. These peoples were among the oldest Indo-European ethno-linguistic groups and one of the most archaic, because Anatolians were among the first Indo-European peoples to separate from the Proto-Indo-European community that gave origin to the individual Indo-European peoples. So it's one of the oldest Aryan races. Remember Hitler, remember Himmler, how obsessed they were with Aryan racial purity and restoring the great Aryan Empire and getting back at the Jews and the Christians who have wronged the Germanic pagan peoples. Remember all the black magic going on with Himmler. Remember the Ahnenerbe. Remember how they were studying all this occult literature and digging up archaeological artifacts all over the world, trying to build some sort of pagan superstate. Remember this. This is where it comes from. So we see the Hittite Empire, parts of Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, and Cyprus. Remember Syria, because that is where Allah came from. Between the 15th and 13th centuries before Christ, the Hittites were one of the dominant powers of the Near East, coming into conflict with the New Kingdom of Egypt, the Middle Assyrian Empire, and the Empire of Mitanni. So let's see what Islam teaches. Let's see. Now remember, if Allah is the God of the Bible, then nothing should contradict what the Torah says. And okay, let's start with this. So the Torah comes from God. We know this because Moses had miracles every single day, and nobody doubts it. Nobody who lived in those times doubts that Moses was speaking to God, that Moses really was having these miracles. Even the Muslims admit these miracles are true. But the Muslims claim that the Bible's been corrupted. The Muslims disagree with the Torah. The Muslims disagree with the prophets. The Muslims disagree with the Gospels. The Muslims disagree with the entire Bible. They throw the whole Bible into the trash. They follow the Quran. They follow the Hadiths. Now, Bukhari is a very reputable Muslim for these Hadiths. And what does Bukhari say? Sahih al-Bukhari 29:26. Allah's messenger said, "The hour will not be established until you fight with the Jews, and the stone behind which a Jew will be hiding will say, 'O Muslim, there is a Jew hiding behind me, so kill him.'" This is what Islam teaches. How can they live peacefully among Jews in Israel if this is what their religion teaches? This is what Muhammad taught them. Kill the Jews in the final days. So this is an Amalekite religion. It teaches the exact same values as the Amalekites had. On his deathbed, so this is Sahih al-Bukhari 3453 and 3454. On his deathbed, Allah's messenger Muhammad put a sheet over his face when he felt hot, and he would remove it from his face. He put a sheet over his face, and when he felt hot, he would remove it from his face. When in that state of putting and removing the sheet, he said, "May Allah's curse be on the Jews and the Christians, for they build places of worship at the graves of their prophets." By that, he intended to warn the Muslims from what they, i.e. the Jews and Christians, had done. Well, I understand that a lot of the Jews did these things, but you can't blame Judaism for that. These are heretics. But the Christians have never done this. They build places of worship at the graves of their prophets. And even if they did build a place of worship at the grave, it's not, as long as they're not building it over the grave. You know, like if you go to Jesus' empty tomb and you pray there, what's the harm there? So he is cursing the Jews and the Christians for basically nothing. Well, let's see what the Bible teaches. Genesis 12:3, God is speaking to Abraham. "I will bless those that bless you and curse those that curse you, and you, all families of the earth, will be blessed." So, because Muhammad cursed the Jews and the Christians, he is cursed. Islam is a cursed religion. Genesis 27:29. "I believe this is Isaac speaking to Jacob. Let people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brethren and over your mother's, and let your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone that curses you, and blessed be he that blesses you." Numbers 22:6. So this is Balaam. Balaam speaking to Balak. Balak wants him to curse the Jews. "Come now, therefore, I pray you, curse me this people, for they are too mighty for me. Peradventure I shall prevail, that we may smite them, and that I may drive them out of the land. For I know that he whom I want that he whom you bless is blessed, and he whom you curse is cursed." Numbers 22:12. God said to Balaam, "You shall not go with them. You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed." So Balak of Jordan, of Moab, wanted to curse Israel, and God said, "You will not curse them, for they are blessed." So Balaam gives the burnt sacrifices and starts prophesying. "He laid down as a lion, who shall stir him up? Blessed is he that blesses you, and cursed is he that curses you." So God bless Israel, Yahweh bless Israel. They are a blessed nation. They need regime change because their country is not following the Torah. Their country is not following the prophets. It's not following the Gospels, but nobody is. No country on earth is rooted in the Torah, the prophets, or the Gospels. That is why everything has gotten so chaotic. But we can always turn back to God. But God's holy land is Israel. It does not belong to the Muslims. It does not belong to the Catholics. It belongs to those who are going to follow the Torah and the Gospels. If you follow the Torah and the Gospels and you make that the law of the land, you are divinely protected by God. So blessed is he who blesses Israel, and cursed is he who curses Israel. As for Israel themselves, they got a lot of Canaanite problems. They got Muslims. They got heretic Talmudists. They got a lot of problems. They're not rooted in the Torah. That's the issue. Whenever a Christian wants to study the Torah, the Jews will always turn them away from the Torah. That's a problem. These are not actual Jews. These are Amalekites. These are Canaanites. The porn industry is run by Jews because these aren't actually Jews. It is so obscene what the porn industry propagates. And these people who push it are not Jews. These rabbis who own Pornhub are not Jews. George Soros is not a Jew, okay? He worked with the Nazis. These are Amalekites. These are heretics. These are children of Satan. This is the synagogue of Satan. And it's not about skin color. It's not about race. It's a religion. It's a satanic cult that is in defiance of the Torah and the prophets and the Gospels. It is Amalek. Whether by blood or by ideology, it is Amalek. So remember, Muhammad cursed them. Muhammad cursed the Jews. Muhammad said, the hour will not be established until you fight with the Jews. So he's talking about Armageddon, that the Muslims are to exterminate the Jews. So these are the Amalekites. This is what they've always been up to. So, he lay down as a lion. I think I already read that one. The Lord would not hearken unto Balaam, but the Lord turned the curse into a blessing unto you because the Lord loved you. So now we're talking about the origins of Hubal. Now, we've already established that Hubal and Allah are the same God. It's the God of the Quraysh who ruled over Mecca. Mecca had 360 gods, and the chief god was Hubal/Allah. It had two different names, but it was an idol. And when Muhammad pretended to be a prophet of Yahweh, he basically just deleted all the pagan references to Allah, and he said, "This is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I am the final prophet." So there may be some foundation of truth in the story that Amr traveled in Syria, the land of the Hittites, where they did Baal worship, human sacrifice, all that stuff. He traveled in Syria and brought back from there the cults of the goddesses Uzzah and Manat, and had combined it with that of Hubal, the idol of the Kuzah. According to Al-Azraqi, the image was brought to Mecca from the land of Hitt in Mesopotamia, Hitt in modern Iraq. So is it possible that the land of Hitt is the same as the land of the Hittites? Most likely. So the name Hubal is an Aramaic word for spirit, suggests that the worship of Hubal was imported to Mecca from north of Arabia, possibly from Moab or Mesopotamia. Hubal may also have been the combination of Hu, meaning spirit or God, and the Moabite god Baal, meaning master or lord. So it means spirit of Baal. They're worshiping Baal. Allah is Baal, a Moabite god, a Hittite god, an enemy god of the Hebrews. Islam is rooted in Satanism, Amalekite garbage. In Arabian mythology, Hubal was a god worshipped in pre-Islamic Arabia, notably by the Quraysh. Muhammad is ethnically a Quraysh. Yes, he turned against the Quraysh, but you don't change your stripes, especially when you follow the same religion, you call it something different. His father was Quraysh, his grandfather, his great-grandfather. Muhammad's a Quraysh. Allah, Hubal, same God. Worshipped by the Quraysh at the Kaaba of Mecca. The god's idol was a human figure believed to control acts of divination, which was performed by tossing arrows before the statue. The direction in which the arrows pointed answered questions asked of the idol. The specific powers and identity attributed to Hubal are equally unclear. Yeah, because there's been a cover-up. The Amalekites are very good at destroying historical archaeological evidence and making cover-ups. So, remember that. They tossed arrows to Hubal to ask it questions. And it's a moon god, planet, the moon. And its consort is Manat. Allat is a pre-Islamic Arabian goddess at one time worshipped under various associations throughout the entire Arabian Peninsula, including Mecca, where she was worshipped alongside Al-Uzza and Manat as one of the daughters of Allah. Allah is a pagan god before Muhammad claimed it was the same God as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's the same thing that happened in 1 Kings 18 and 19, where they said, "You think Baal is God? Let's put that to the test." Worshipped alongside Al-Uzza and Manat as one of the daughters of Allah. The word Allat or Elat has been used to refer to various goddesses in the ancient Near East, including the goddess Asherah Athirat. Asherah, the Asherah pole. So this is Ishtar. This is the whore of Babylon. This is something in book of Jeremiah, chapter 7, chapter 44, it talks about Asherah, the queen of heaven. So many pagan ideologies hiding in the Bible, not even hiding, pretending to be a continuation of the Bible. But if you understand the Torah, you won't fall for this garbage. That's why the law of Moses everyone should study the law of Moses until they understand it. And then you will understand God. And if you reject the law of Moses, then you reject God. Once you understand the law of Moses and you understand the Gospels, then obey and be a child of God, or reject and be a child of the Satan. So Abdullah, the name Abdullah means servant of God. Actually means slave of God, slave of Allah specifically, because Allah is not God. I don't care if the Arabic Bibles say Allah as the name of Elohim. It is not the same God. We have already established this. Allah had 3 daughters, Alat, Al-Uzza, and Manat. All of these were brought from the land of Hitt, from the Amalekites, from the Hittites, from Syria into Arabia. This is a Hittite, Amalekite religion brought into Arabia and forced onto ignorant people who were probably closer to Moses' religion than they would have been to this. Because remember, Arabia, Saudi Arabia, they had experiences with what Moses did. Moses married a Midianite woman, a Saudi Arabian woman. Mount Sinai, also known as Mount Horeb, is Jabal Makla in the land of Midian in Saudi Arabia. You can see where God melted the mountain, where Moses received the 10 Commandments, where Moses spoke to God in the burning bush in Exodus 20 and Exodus 3. So, yeah, the land of Saudi Arabia does have the fingerprint of God on it, but it's not in Mecca. It's in the mountains of Jabal Makla. So, Abdullah, slave of Allah. Humility before Allah is an essential value of Islam, hence Abdullah is a common name among Muslims. However, the name of the Islamic prophet Muhammad's father was Abdullah. So remember, Muhammad was the first Muslim. His father was not a Muslim like he is a Muslim. His father worshipped many gods. So how is it that his father's name is slave of Allah if Allah was not worshipped the same way that Muhammad taught? Hubal. Prophet's father died before his birth, which indicates that the name was already in use in pre-Islamic Arabia. It is also common among Mizrahi Jews, especially Iraqi Jews and Syrian Jews. Well, shame on them for naming their children slave of Allah. This is not the same God as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. As for me, Elijah. Elohim is my God. Yahweh is my Elohim. Abd al-Muttalib. This is the grandfather of Muhammad. This is the one who actually raised him after his father died. Abdul Muttalib, servant of Muttalib, was the 4th chief of the Quraysh tribe confederation and grandfather of the Islamic prophet Muhammad. And he raised him because Muhammad was orphaned. Well, you know what else he did? He almost sacrificed his son, Abdullah. Okay? A human sacrifice of slave of Allah was almost a human sacrifice to Hubal/Allah, depending on which version of the story you read. Al-Harith was Abdul Muttalib's only son at the time he dug the Zamzam well. When the Quraysh tried to help him in the digging, he vowed that if he were to have 10 sons to protect him, he would sacrifice one of them to Allah at the Kaaba. Now this is very different from the book of Genesis, where Abraham is tested by God to see if he will sacrifice Isaac. And in the book of Jubilees, it says that this was Satan's idea. Satan was the one who brought it up to God, and God said, let's test that theory. So the context of that story in the Bible is very different from Abdullah almost being sacrificed because Abdul wanted to, which is proof. Allah is Baal. They were also sacrificing their children to Baal. He would sacrifice one of his sons to Allah at the Kaaba. Abdullah, slave of Allah, was almost a human sacrifice to Allah, who is Baal, Hubal, spirit of Baal. After 9 more sons had been born to him, he told them he must keep the vow. He tossed divination arrows, just like with Hubal. The divination arrows fell upon his favorite son Abdullah, slave of Allah. The Quraysh protested Abdul Muttalib's intention to sacrifice his son and demanded that he sacrifice something else instead. Abdul Muttalib agreed to consult a witch with a familiar spirit, which is prohibited in the law of Moses. You shall not suffer a witch to live. A sorceress with a familiar spirit must be put to death. All right? These women with familiar spirits were cursed in the law of Moses. What the hell is Abdul doing talking to a witch with a familiar spirit to talk about, hey, what can I sacrifice instead of my son, slave of Allah? So you can't, if you understand the Torah, you can't believe Islam is the same religion. The only way they can propagate their garbage is with people who don't know the Bible. And the thing is, most of these Muslims are not stupid. Most of these Muslims know they worship a different God. They don't want you to know they worship a different God because they're Amalekites. So the Quraysh protested his decision. He consulted a witch. She told him to cast lots between Abdullah and 10 camels. If Abdullah were chosen, he had to add 10 more camels and kept doing so until Baal accepted the camels in slave of Allah, Abdullah's place. When the number of camels reached 100, the lot fell on the camels. Abdul Muttalib confirmed this by repeating the test 3 times. Then the camels were sacrificed and Abdullah was spared. First of all, camels are unclean animals. You're not even supposed to sacrifice or eat them. But the Muslims do because they don't believe in the law of Moses. Okay. According to Islamic cosmology, the Zura pilgrimage site was the precursor to the Kaaba. Prior to Islam, the Kaaba was a holy site for various Bedouin tribes throughout the Arabian Peninsula. Once every lunar year, Bedouin people would make a pilgrimage to Mecca, setting aside any tribal feuds. They would worship their gods in the Kaaba and trade with each other in the city. Various sculptures and paintings were held inside the Kaaba. A statue of Hubal, the chief idol of Mecca. Wait a minute, I thought it was Allah. Abdullah, slave of Allah, almost sacrificed by his father what's his name? Muttalib. So is Allah the chief of Mecca, or is it Hubal? Or is Allah and Hubal the same God, and they're lying to us? Statue of Hubal, the principal god of Mecca, and the statues of other pagan deities are known to have been placed in or around the Kaaba. Apart from the paintings of pagan idols decorating the walls, which were destroyed at the behest of Muhammad after his conquest of Mecca, there were also paintings of angels of Abraham holding divination arrows, just like Hubal, and of Isa and his mother Miriam. Well, Isa is not Jesus, and Miriam, yeah, that's probably what her name was. But Isa and Miriam, as the Muslims believe it, is not Jesus and Mary, which Muhammad spared. And first of all, you're not even supposed to have graven images of Jesus, Mary, or the angels or anything. God was very clear, thou shalt not make graven images. But Muhammad was cool with it because it gave him legitimacy. Undefined decorations, money, and a pair of ram's horns were recorded to be inside the Kaaba. The pair of ram's horns were said to have belonged to the ram sacrificed by Ibrahim in place of his son Ishmael, as held by the Islamic tradition. Another lie. It was Isaac on the altar. It was very clear that it was Isaac, but by claiming it was Ishmael, they undermined Jewish legitimacy of the Holy Land. They claim that because Isaac was not the chosen son, that it was Ishmael, that Ishmael is the one who owns the Holy Land, not Isaac, who passed it to his son Isaac to Jacob, and Jacob to his 12 sons. This is Islam. It's Amalekite revisionism of the Bible. All Islam does is confuse Bible stories to people who have not read the book. So Muhammad, they were merchants and were known to be wealthy. They resided in the southwest part of the city. So we're talking about the Banu Kainuka. So the Banu Kainuka were expelled from the Holy Land because of a rumor. Islamic tradition says that in the year 624, a Muslim woman came to the shop of Banu Kainuka goldsmith. The goldsmith played a prank on her. She screamed and a Muslim man killed him. His fellows took revenge and killed the Muslim man. Muhammad regarded this as casus belli. The Muslims accused the tribe of breaking the constitution in Medina. He besieged the tribe for 14 or 15 days, and they surrendered unconditionally. And he wanted to kill them. He wanted to kill all the men, but he was convinced to just expel them from the expel them from their lands and take their wealth instead. So this is the history of Islam with the Jews. So this is what they claim happened, that a man pulled a prank on a woman, she screamed, they killed the man, and then the men killed that man, and then the Muslims expelled them from the Holy Land, from their land after wanting to exterminate them. This happened again with the Banu Nadir. They expelled by Muhammad after his defeat at Uhud against the Quraysh, who took action against marauding attacks on the trade caravans and to revenge themselves for Badr. So there Muhammad found that some of the Jews who had not taken part in the battle were not concealing their pleasure at his tragedy. Feeling the need to set an example, Muhammad were not concealing. Probably what it was is they didn't care. It's like, I can't believe I lost the battle. It's like, yeah, well, politics is politics. If you win, you're the king. If they win, they're the king. And Muhammad didn't like that answer because Muhammad felt like he was a prophet. And for the Jews to reject them as a prophet is a big slap in the face, because the Jews were always highly respected as holders of wisdom, because the Jews had the Torah and the Jews had the prophets, but the Christians have the Gospels. So if you are a Christian and you understand the Torah and the prophets, you are basically the most wise of all peoples. So he kicked them out and he stole their wealth. The Quran simply says that they defied Allah and Muhammad. Of course, they have to. Hey, why did you kick them out? Oh, they defied Allah and Muhammad. No, they just didn't care. Muhammad lost a battle and they're like apathetic to it. Or maybe they were happy about it. Who cares? It's politics. Now, the Banu Qurayza, this is the one that was really bad. These ones were slaughtered and sold into slavery. At this point, I believe Muhammad changed the house of worship from Jerusalem to Mecca. They used to pray facing Jerusalem like the Jews did, then they prayed facing Mecca like the pagans did. So the Banu Qurayza surrendered after 25 days, and basically they were pronounced that all the men would be put to death, their possessions would be distributed among the Muslims, and their wives and children would be taken as slaves, sold as slaves. So 900 men were executed. The women and children were distributed as slaves, with some being transported to Najd to be sold. The proceeds were then utilized to purchase weapons and horses for the Muslims. Is this not an Amalekite religion? Is this not a religion hostile to Judaism, hostile to Christianity, hostile to the Bible, hostile to Solomon's temple, hostile to Israel? Everything that God says is good in the Bible, Islam says is bad. They don't believe in our God. They say none is worthy of worship except for Allah. Well, Allah is Hubal. Allah is not Yahweh, and I will die before I bow my knees to this fake Amalekite pagan god. 1 Kings 19:18. Yet I have left me 7,000 in Israel, all the knees which have not bowed unto Baal, and every mouth which has not kissed him. Are they not kissing the Baal stone, the rock of Mecca? Is this not idolatry the same way the Greeks did, the same way every other pagan group would kiss their sacred altars? Is this not the same thing when they kiss the Mecca stone, when they kiss the black rock of Mecca? Are they not bowing the knees to Moloch, to Baal, to Hubal, to Zeus, to Allah? Is this not the same thing when they kiss him and bow to him? And this will be the end of the video. So I hope you learned something. Share it, like, comment, subscribe. God bless.